Hey Svitlana, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing very fine too. It's getting a bit more chill and colder, but my question, of course, is how is it going in Canada? What's the weather like?
Also a bit colder, but no snow yet,
No snow
which is
yet.
good.
Have you actually ever had holidays in a snowy area and did like some skiing or snowboarding or something similar?
No, I haven't.
Hmm.
I've never gone skiing or snowboarding specifically. I've tried it. I've tried it out, but never gone on a holiday, and it's my dream to learn snowboarding.
Is that so? Huh, okay. I've never done it myself either, but I think this might be in this life, I might never learn it because I don't feel like I don't want to. I think I always go to the beach and play some beach volleyball or something
Oh,
similar.
it's fine surfing instead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did that, failed miserably. I think chess is a good option if you're not that good with the other things. Talking
Yeah.
about chess, you have some smart moves today. What is it going to be?
Yeah. Well, today we will explore the principle of the two weaknesses. I'm sure you've
Important.
heard about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
to be honest, I have this beautiful advantage that of course I have the German version of our show, which is with Elisabeth Pates. So every now and then, your courses or your themes are, yeah, taking steps on top of each other. So sometimes I heard something from you, I heard something from Elisabeth, and then I'm like talking about this. Yeah, so this is
oh,
absolutely
did
beautiful.
she have a show about
Yeah,
the same
it's
principle?
she yeah, every now and then it happens. So if you, by the way, if you speak German at home or if you're yeah, if you are quite capable of German, I highly recommend to also visit the German news page to see the shows with Elisabeth, which is also very insightful. On the other hand, if you are a German, you probably don't even see that unless you can speak English already, and then you know you're going to watch this. So I will announce the same on Elisabeth's channel anyway. But yeah, we had like one or two lessons about the two weaknesses, but we weren't diving like we didn't make it a theme yet, so I am super excited to look into this because it's very important as far as I know.
Right, right. It has come up in some of our previous lessons too,
So
but
yeah,
we never got around to dedicating an entire lesson to it. So why not do it today?
absolutely, yeah, let's go for it. Share the screen and let's jump right into the smart moves.
Mm,
There we go.
yeah.
Oh no, it's an end game.
Well, it's we won't only have endgames, so don't worry about it.
Good, good.
But the main idea of the principle of the two weaknesses, it's pretty self-explanatory. When there's only one weakness, an opponent who has decent defensive skills can usually defend it without too much trouble. But if you take an effort to create a second weakness in his position, that is when the defense will get more and more difficult, and that will significantly increase your winning chances. It's a very commonly emphasized principle in any chess book that you can think about, all the dating all the way back to like Nimzovich. So it's been around for a very long time. I believe he was one of the first to outline it in his books.
Okay.
So yeah, that is the main idea of the principle of the two weaknesses, and it will make a bit more sense when we see it in action. So this is our first position, and you were a bit disappointed by the fact that it was an end game. Um, but it's usually a principle that it's seen in its purest form in end games, where one side has one
Okay.
small advantage, because that's when it becomes that's when the conversion comes into question. So, for example, this position we have on the board, we can obviously tell that white is the one playing for a win. He has one extra pawn, but that one extra pawn might not be enough just on its own.
Mhm.
So the first question is, how would you try to convert this extra pawn? And what would your plan be?
Very good question.
I'm not asking for a specific move, just
What the
how
general
would you try
plan
to
would
convert?
be. So I'm still not that good with the end games, but I believe that if I can get rid of the knight, this would be absolutely helpful for me to convert the pawn. Because I think if the king gets active and the queen is moving forward too, this should actually do the trick. That's my thought about it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, you want to get rid of the knight. Actually, I probably would not necessarily do that because queen endgames are very tricky. You know, you never know when there's going to be a perpetual. So I would probably avoid avoid a queen, avoid a bishop for knight trade.
Okay.
Just because I don't want any perpetuals, any risk of a perpetual happening.
Makes sense.
Right. So what we are going to do is create a second weakness. That is the whole point. That's the whole idea of our principle today is the pawn on b2, the fact that we have a passed pawn. That's one weakness. And the second weakness, we are going to try to do that on the king side. So the first move is queen d4. So this is not, this just improves the position of the queen and prepares the advance of the king side pawns. The whole reason why it would be wrong to start promoting right away is because well, black can quite simply blockade it on b6, probably with the knight or with the queen, and well, the pawn will not really be going anywhere. But what you did with that pawn is you've opened up your king's position, and now the king will be vulnerable and exposed to a lot of checks. So it is not really the safest thing to do right away. So this is why we go to the idea of creating a second weakness.
Okay, yeah, it makes total sense. Well, if you say it like that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
All right. And by the way, this is a game between Alekhine and Saemisch. So
Classic.
Also two big names. Yeah, I had a big realization when because I was wondering whether this is the Saemisch that have you probably heard of the name, right?
Yes, I mean, but I might be completely wrong, and I hope I really apologize if I'm wrong, but I think that's part of the name why Fritz is called Fritz, because of the famous Fritz Saemisch, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I would just think...
That was my realization, is I was trying to connect the dots because I saw that his, in the database, his name is written as Fritz. But I knew that the Saemisch that I've heard about, his name's always been Friedrich.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think that is the correlation and that is the reason. It would be very embarrassing if it's not the case, but yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
No, I was wondering, is it because Frederick himself, does he ever go by Fritz or something like that?
No, I think this has some occurrence which I do not know. I have to make my research. I will actually try to solve it in one of our next lessons then and give you some insight, because luckily Andre Schulz, one of our writers for the news site, he knows everything about chess. So I will quickly ask him this question and he will tell me everything about that. Right. But in general, whoever is called Friedrich, I guess Fritz could be some kind of short version of it, but I don't think it's that common.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah, because I saw Fritz and I just, it blew my mind that, wait, maybe this is why. Yeah. Well, because he was one of the very famous and very good German players, so it could correlate.
Could very well be, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the position. Alekhine, we of course know. He also has no one ever knows how to pronounce his name correctly. I think the English way is Alekhine, which I sometimes say too, but I feel like a fake Russian when I do that. So I'm going to go with Alekhine because I think that sounds more correct.
And now today's the time of connecting shows and programs and whatever, but I recently had a show with the German chess player Matthias Deutschmann. He has a show every Thursday. We have a show together where he's taking some statements to politics and takes a theme about chess. And his last theme was Alekhine, or Alekhine. And he says, since he knows Russian also pretty well, he says, normally it says Ayukhin. Could that be? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes even Russians sometimes pronounce it as Alekhin.
But okay.
The real, no, as far as I know, the real last name is Alekhine.
Alekhine. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but definitely not Alekhine, because that's the English way to do it, and I say it sometimes too, just because almost everyone says it, but I'll go with the proper way.
This is almost a history tour today. Nice. Okay. Anyway,
right.
So Queen E7. That was the last move. Yes.
Yeah. And my question is, how? What would the next? How would you execute the next plan? Nothing to calculate. Just look for the plan.
Now, from what you have said earlier, I believe it's not good to move the king forward yet, which would have been my instinct. So maybe advance one of the pawns on the king side, I guess.
Right. Either h4 or g4 are both good ideas. Mm-hmm. And where do you think the rest of the pieces are going? Where is the bishop going to go?
Where's the bishop going to go? Well, he seems quite okay there. I wouldn't...
He does. Yeah. He does. But this is why the next move is perhaps one of the most difficult ones in the game. Alekhine played bishop d3. Ooh. And let me show you. The idea is that he's already aiming at creating that weakness on h7. So he's preparing the bishop to go here on this diagonal. But yes. h4 and g4 are both could have been played right away. So the ideas are quite similar. And the reason why you don't advance the king right away, just because that's your first instinct, is because actually the knight and the queen are a very dangerous combination. They're not as harmless as they look. They can have a lot of they can make a lot of threats, and I would be really worried for your king if it came somewhere like c4. Wow. There could be a lot of threats. The knight can maybe give you a bit of trouble with some forks, and the queen can also give a lot of checkpoints.
Yeah. It's funny because the whole time I would have played it differently. So I'm already learning a lot here once again. All right. So aiming for h7. Good idea. Interesting.
So the next few moves that happen is queen c7 and g4. That was our plan all along. The h2 pawn.
Okay, it's taboo.
By the way, because there's queen b7. So for now, white just advances the pawns. So you see, our advantage in this type of endgame, it's permanent. So your extra pawn is not going anywhere. So this is why those positions with tiny advantages like this one, it's important to create a second weakness, because then it becomes more difficult for the opponent to defend both of them on both sides of the board. And after h5, well, black has to choose whether he wants the weakness on g6 or on h7, and he chooses to take. And now white managed to create a second weakness, the pawn on h7, and already this position, well, is considered by the computer as winning. Maybe it doesn't look like it yet, but that extra weakness on h7 makes the whole difference. An important maybe thing to note is that a weakness can be doesn't always have to be a pawn per se. So our pass pawn on the queen side is also considered one of black's weaknesses, because it's something that black constantly has to defend against. If we're talking about the middle game, a weakness can also be an exposed king of the opponent. So things like that. For this principle, it doesn't always have to be the doubled pawn, let's say. That's not always the weakness that we're talking about.
So if I just to give a thought about it, if I understand this correctly, if we would imagine that black would use the queen on the far queen side, takes the knight over to the queen side as well to try to get some counterplay against the 3 pawns. If that would have been the case, we would take the chance of the second weakness and probably then push forward the pawn on b4 and the king.
Well, it's a bit hard for black to also only keep the pieces on that side of the board, because we can still probably advance some pawns, gain some space, right? It depends. If the knight is all the way somewhere on g7 or g8, then yes, we might even take our chance.
Yes.
But yeah, I would first go through with the whole plan on the queen side, because we're not rushing anywhere. If the pieces are staying there forever, then let's see what the opponent plan is first. We make some waiting moves, and then when we think it's time, when the queen and the knight can't coordinate anymore well, or the pawn has a free way to go, then yes, we would go for that.
Very good, very important, especially the not rushing. Those mistakes in the end games.
That's one of the other very, very important principles. Could also have its own lesson about it, because it's something that people do a lot in end games, I find, and that's why it's important to realize what is the kind of advantage that you have, and what's the best way to approach it. And sometimes when advantages are static like that, there's nowhere to rush, and you don't have to do something immediately. And it's even better that you don't do something immediately. You leave your opponent more room for mistakes, and you do a breakthrough when you're more prepared for it.
Sure. All right.
Okay, so as I told you, the position is already winning, but it doesn't look like it just yet. So the question is, would you take the pawn here right away, or would you wait a bit longer?
Well, now the queen will then take f3, and I don't think that's very helpful for our position. So I would try to use our advice from earlier and do maybe not rush and defend f3 before that. I don't know how yet, but there's several options. Maybe just using your bishop. Yeah, exactly. I think that might be the most straightforward version.
That is what happened in the game, and I tend to think that it's the best approach as well. Bishop h7 is not a mistake yet, but I think it makes your job tougher to give up one of the pawns. It's all about these little details. Even if the computer still thinks it's winning, I would rather not, make these tiny changes to our position, which could backfire later.
But now that's not working.
That is the problem, because there's queen d1 and you get caught in a perpetual. Yeah, so that's one other thing to be careful about. But something like h6 and, of course, many other moves would still lead to a winning position. But why risk it if you could just play it safe and once again not really rush in this position? And the next thing we do is we fixate the weakness. So with h6, now the pawn forever stays on h7 and it's not going anywhere, and that's usually a very useful place to put a pawn. You probably see that a lot in end games, because once the h7 pawn falls, then our pawn is already very, very close to being promoted. So a few more moves are being made. The rest is not that important. So the important part was really to realize that we needed a second weakness in our position, and we didn't even rush with the pawn. The pawn hasn't even moved yet. So now after the pawn is blockaded, the most important thing is to exchange queens. Well, at least that makes the job a lot simpler, in my opinion. By the way, now the pawn is not hanging anymore because I think, there's no perpetual. That's one thing. And if they take the other pawn, then the bishop should be enough. If it was just the bishop and the queen, I would maybe be a bit worried. Yeah. But we have the extra pawn.
There's still this b2 pawn, exactly, who's doing the trick. Yeah.
Win. So after this, we exchange the queens. So not the knight for the bishop, but we exchange the queens instead. And this is a completely winning endgame now. because there are two weaknesses for black to defend. So one of his pieces will always have to be on the king side, and and well, there's another weakness here. So white did end up winning the pawn. And also one other thing about this position is that it's a bishop against a knight, and in endgames, one of the common themes is that when there is play on two sides of the board, the bishop is better. If it's only on one side, then the knight is better. And
yes.
Here we're still on two sides, which does give the advantage to the bishop, but of course it's the extra 2 pawns too that.
Oh wait, isn't can I quickly ask? Bishop takes f5 is not working earlier when the king moved to e6.
It's probably.
Oh, the king doesn't take.
I don't think, honestly, at this point, I don't think it even matters because everything is winning.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, didn't want to calculate it or
I thought it would be quicker, but probably, why even go
No,
into
the end was not even that important because it's already 2 pawns. So should be enough as long as you don't lose both of them. But yeah, that was the first example.
Very, very insightful, I have to say. Something I don't know much about yet, the 2 weaknesses. And it's funny because it's something I should know. Like, I think it's getting taught when you're learning chess. It's an important thing, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say it's there's a saying like every Russian schoolboy probably
knows about
it. But to be fair, I feel like a Russian schoolboy knows more than I do about chess because the Russian school of chess is just known to be very powerful.
I just thought you wanted to say I feel like a Russian schoolboy, and then okay, so
I feel like a Russian schoolboy knows more than I do, especially in like endgames or something like that. But this next game is yet another example from our world champion Alekhine.
Wow.
And here we're going to see how the principle of the 2 weaknesses can be applied in a middle game.
Okay.
So I would say that middle games are not as straightforward compared to end games because when there are more pieces on the board, there are more opportunities for the opponent to create counterplay. So it's rather rare that the opponent is just passively defending his weakness and letting you do all the slow maneuvers that you wish. Mm-hmm. And also that weakness can sometimes be sacrificed for dynamic reasons, right? For an attack, which you wouldn't be able to necessarily do in an end game. So it changes things a bit in a middle game. But still, it's still the same idea. It's just there's just more factors to consider now. Okay. So in this position, bishop d7 happened, and we're once again looking at it from the white point of view. So what weaknesses would you target in this position? And what would be the move that supports your plan?
Oof. Okay. So from what we have learned so far, what are our strengths? What is black's weakness? Well, I guess this is the question if I'm doing this correctly. So is the bishop on d7 a weakness because he's like not very active, or wouldn't this be really considered a weakness because after one more move it can easily get a better position maybe?
After which move? I'm just curious.
Maybe bishop e8 and then f6 or something, which is 2 moves actually.
Okay, I thought you were close to finding the move, but never mind.
Oh no. Okay.
But still, so the bishop is not really the weakness that I'm talking about.
Okay,
but so it will be a bad bishop for most of the games.
As always, I have to go for my very, very first instinct, because the more often I'm doing the lessons with you guys, the more often I have you see the board, you have one immediate idea, and then you throw it away because you think like, it's not a good idea. But clearly the weakness
Okay.
is f7.
One, I would
Oh.
maybe call that the second weakness. Like it still can be a weakness, but it's not the main one.
I thought after queen f4 this is good, but yeah. Okay, that's not the main weakness. Damn. Maybe it is the oh gosh, this is this a bit more complicated, or am I just very stupid right now? The queen.
No, I think it's a bit more complicated.
Thank you. That's very nice. You're saying that even if it's not, makes me feel a bit better. So the black queen is also not so active, right?
Yes.
I'm always looking at your face to see a reaction if you would go like, yeah. But there's just
let's look at the pawns first.
Okay, so I have 2 pawns in the middle, and black has a pawn on b7, which is weak. I still think f7 is very weak.
It looks like it. You'll see later in the game that it can be easily defended with bishop e8. So this is why I wouldn't really say that's the main weakness, but I mean, still something that black is constantly defending.
So one idea I have is to play c5 and the knight to c4.
Yes, good.
Oh my god, really?
c5, yes.
I had this in my mind earlier already because I thought, like, this looks good. The queen doesn't have many spots left. Also, it blocks the other pawns from advancing, and it also captures the bishop. But let me quickly get back, or unless you're not allowed to tell me yet, what are the 2 weaknesses here?
I can tell you. So the first weakness that we're going to be focused on is, well, a queenside pawn, which right now would be b7, okay, which is weak. So this is why the next move you'll see black even plays b4, so that you're not allowed to do the whole knight c4 plan. And that's when we get the other weakness, which is c6. So that's our first weakness right now on the queen side. It's going to be that pawn. So we are first going to team up on that pawn and maneuver around. So this is a maneuvering phase of the game that we're about to enter. So usually the process goes something like that. You created a weakness, then you put pressure on it and make sure all of your opponent's pieces are tied to it. So you're not even necessarily trying to win that weakness. The main goal is just that all of his pieces are tied to defending it.
Gotcha. Like this, because if everything is tied to it, some other weakness will occur.
It won't just occur, you will create it. That is yes, how it goes.
I see, I get you. Okay, cool.
So now we're already done the first 2 steps. The third step is improving your pieces to the maximum. So right now, this is quite a passive position for black. So we do have some time to do some maneuvers. So the third step, we're improving all of our pieces. Next, we're going to create another weakness.
Queen f3.
And that's how the principle of 2 weaknesses is going to appear. And then finally, breaking through that would be the final phase.
Yeah.
So our one weakness, we've already established it. It's here. f7 definitely looks like one, and I would maybe agree that it's a weakness, but it's pretty well defended right now, and it's not like the bishop has anything better to do anyway. So we're not really looking at making sacrifices there yet.
Okay.
Next, knight e2 was played. It's quite a strange looking move, but can you guess where the knight is going?
Well, probably to... Is it f4? Yes, of course. Has to.
And then?
And then there is a chance to either go to h5 or to even... I don't think it's d3. No.
It is d3. You can even go through c1. It doesn't matter. I'm not sure if it matters. You can even go through c1 and then d3 and then b4. to team up on the other weakness. But from d3, it is also good because, you know, it's like going on the other side, targeting the center.
Oh, I didn't see that in 1,000 years. What a plan.
Right.
What a strength.
92, okay. I don't think it's the best move, honestly. 92.
Yeah, me neither.
I think the engine doesn't really like it as much. But it's still a plan. That's how humans play. We just need to have a plan. It doesn't matter. You know, a bad plan is better than no plan. But this is not even a bad plan. So this is still good. So now, because knight d3 and knight b4 was a pretty powerful idea, Black decides to trade one of the knights so that the pressure is not going to be as big anymore. So the second knight did come in handy here, and it came to e5 now. So we no longer have that knight b4 plan, but well, the knight is obviously better on e5 as it is. So around this time, we have already improved our pieces to probably our best ability, and we should start thinking about the second weakness. So weakness on c6, maybe not enough because we have already attacked it. Black seems to be capable of defending it. So this is where we think about creating a second one. What do you think it would be?
Well, I would go for the king attack because I'm a simple boy.
Yeah, the king attack is the right way to go. And what do you think the move is? There's many good ones.
One of the rooks goes to the third row and then just moves over, I guess.
That's what I thought you would do, but it's not the best. But if you play rook d3, it's still good. The position should still be good, but you'll see there's a big difference between this and the game. So the thing is, Black can probably play f6 for now and just stand around like that. And your rook does stand well on g3, but there's not really, well, you don't have mate yet. And also you have to remember that your d4 pawn can also be a target. So once your rook leaves, the d pawn might be attacked too.
And then we have a weakness instead.
Yeah. And I don't really like moving this rook because I'm just worried about like queen e5. Obviously not right now.
Okay, yes.
But let's say, I don't know.
If the rook moves further, then it's going to be a problem.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know, I'll just make a random move. This is obviously not good. But now the rook can't move because of queen e5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bringing the rook is not the plan. But what you mentioned about opening up the king is the right second weakness. So, work in that direction.
So how do we do this the best way? Getting the queen over doesn't seem so effective for me yet. I mean, I would just move the queen to f3 now, finally, because it also attacks c6 another time, ties more pieces to this spot. Yeah, my plan.
So you still like the
I
f7
so
pawn.
want to go to... Yes,
You've defended 3 times already.
I don't care. I will just sacrifice into it. No, but isn't
queen f3?
Okay, yeah, it's a mediocre move, but
yeah, it's not bad. Like nothing in this position would be bad, but yeah, it's not the plan.
It's not the killer move. Okay. Yeah. So what is the plan here? What can it be? Okay, let me think for a short moment. Have you at home thought this out correctly already? What is the plan for white? What can white do effectively? Pushing a pawn doesn't make sense to me. The queen is not so good. The rooks aren't good. So the bishop...
You're gonna get there by the process of elimination.
Bishop and knight are left.
Bishop and knight are on their perfect spots.
Yeah. So...
We've already improved our pieces to the maximum. So I think you know the plan is we're going to try to open up the opponent's king.
Yeah, that's a good plan. But I don't know how. How do we use a can opener for this king? Okay, but so now I'm desperate and I'm like going for elimination, but like h4, g4, no.
Exactly.
Yeah?
You play
Oh gosh.
h4, happen in the game. You can also play g4 with like similar ideas. f4 is also interesting, but maybe not as efficient. But g4 and h4, I like those two. H4 is what happened in the game.
Great.
And yes, so it's mainly against the move g6. So g6, you always have some h5 at your disposal. So that's why it's an efficient pawn move. So,
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even consider that much, but yes, this is actually, if this white pawn goes to h5, then this is very good for white.
and h5 wouldn't be a good defense for black either, because, well, then that's yet another weakness, and we can follow it up with g4 and open up the position of the king even more. So that's why h5 would not be recommended. And in case of g6, which I think was black's intended defense, because, right, you'll also have to remember the last move he went bishop f8, so probably his intended defense was something like that. But here, h5, of course, was the whole goal.
Destroys the dreams.
This
elegant
bishop b1 move, and we're bringing our queen here, should be pretty good for our attacking chances. So, right, you can notice how the two weaknesses works so well, because a lot of black's pieces are right now on the queen side, defending that pawn on c6. And if we were to suddenly bring the game to the king side, that will take black some time to consolidate on the other side. So that is why the principle can work out really well in middle games too. So here, the best, black plays the best defense, I think, with h5.
Okay.
And we play queen f3. Finally, your move came, and
it's about time. The game could have ended already if he would have played it earlier.
Right. He was just, you couldn't see it as early as he did, so it took him some time to get there.
Yes, it's fine. I don't blame him. Back then were different times, and
right. I sometimes wonder how the players from that time would be playing in the modern times. I wonder if that would change anything. So yeah, now we're just opening up the king side. Of course, this was what we intended all along. g4 takes, queen takes. Of course, it's looking really good. So now I think white should already be pretty much winning, and we are at the conversion phase.
How to
try to guess Alekhine's next move. It's a hard one. Many moves are good, but the one he played is particularly nice.
Now, of course, there are cute options with sacrificing on g6. And then taking on e6, but I would say not yet. Well, h5 was my super initial instinct, of course.
That's what I would have played too, probably.
Because it looks, this just opens it up pretty well.
Let's look at h5. So I would probably have played it too. It's my first instinct as well. It's still winning, and there's no doubt about it. But it's probably a bit around here. It's a bit more complicated than I thought.
Yeah.
So queen f4 now, rook e4. That's an important move. That's the only move that gives you a winning advantage.
Oh boy.
And now I have to be careful to go to f1, and something like this is winning, but it's a bit messier than we probably have liked. So the move Alekhine plays quite is quite nice.
Okay.
I don't think I would have found it, by the way.
Oh, how about King H1?
No, I don't think it's King H1.
Okay, then I don't know.
The move is Bishop A2.
Oh gosh.
It looks so
Yeah.
strange, but well,
That's amazing.
the idea is powerful, right? So if right now the bishop cannot make sacrifices there, so now we're threatening. So let's say if something like Queen E7 happens, then we're gonna play Knight G6, and that was the idea, is that the bishop is gonna be really useful on that diagonal. So after B4, that's a pretty good defense for. This is the game. So after B4,
Bishop
very
C4.
good defense for black. He plays Bishop C4.
Yeah.
Once again, just some crazy maneuver. Not even a maneuver, it's just that it wasn't working right away because of B3.
Sure.
So he moves the bishop out of the way so that there's no B3.
He wants this to work.
And yeah, so he ended up not even playing knight G6 here. There was a tactic here. So still, Knight G6 is not working. That's his idea all along, but it's not working right now because of Rook D4.
Oh gosh.
Queen came here and sneakily.
Yes.
So that's why he just plays some waiting moves. But that's a good thing about our position, is that you can improve all you want, and it is still going to be fine. So he made a few inaccuracies. I think he could have won faster, but a win is a win. It doesn't matter how long it takes to get there. So now King H1,
King
your
H1,
move.
I told you.
Like you just see the moves before the position occurs.
I just, I have like this kind of computer vision, and I see them like 5 or 6 moves before they are played already. So I just have to use this secret superpower to play better chess. Anyway, yeah, that's the nice idea to get the rook to G1 is, of course. Yeah, it doesn't need my expertise. I think everybody would have seen that at one point.
We'll try to find the last tactic that finished the game. There's many winning moves, of course, but
I would immediately snack the bishop on G7. That has to win. It cannot go wrong. Bishop now, I guess.
And now where? Bishop? You want bishop? Well, he didn't play that.
Yeah, it's not en passant. I thought my knight would be able to do en passant for a short second, but yeah, I don't know why.
That's a nice new rule.
I just made it up. The future. I can predict that now. Yeah, so what is the good next idea here? Is it just... not so clear for me at the moment. Let's see. Is it just knight G3? Does that do it?
Do you mean knight F3? Or do you mean queen G3?
Queen G3. I'm sorry, pardon. Queen G3.
Queen G3 is one of the winning moves, I would say, with the idea of going to H4 if the queen ever moves away. Right? So the queen went to defend, and queen H4. This wins as well. What he played in the game was knight F7. So he was a bit more fancy. So he finished the game in his typical attacking style. That's what he is known for. Knight F7, and the ideas are that if the knight gets taken, it's pretty much over. So you either die like this, or you die in some other way.
I gave my own example already, that I said the pawn is moving in between. So why not just take out the pawn so it cannot move in between there?
Yeah. Sometimes.
Very nice.
And something like this would have won. The game ended after knight F7. He resigned.
Okay. I thought,
but something like this.
Some resistance here still. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that was a bit mind-blowing to me. Apologies for everybody who's watching this and who probably knows all of this by heart already. I didn't. I certainly didn't. And I think this is such a good approach to You can unshare the screen, sorry. It's such a good approach to learn about some strategies. And especially, yeah, if you have a middle game or an end game, then you can go like, okay, I don't know what to do. So let's take a look at what weaknesses does my opponent have. Okay, I can just go full power on this pawn. And if everybody is defending this pawn, I'll just sneak in a little mate attack or try to get the other pawn on the other side or something like that. Yeah, I mean, if you do not know this, you do those things sometimes by instinct or because you have this idea about it, but you don't know why. So there's this language which you are just formulating, and that gives a better sense.
But I think some people also can overdo that one weakness that
yeah. Oh, okay.
that the opponent has, right? And you can forget that you can do something completely different and create a second one.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, the layers are so deep, obviously, because that doesn't mean that it's always working. That is, of course, a thing. Yeah, if the knight is on the edge of the board, it doesn't always mean it's the bad thing to do. So sometimes this is just the winning move very often. Yeah, this is why chess is such an amazing and beautiful game and why we all love it and we cannot get rid of it.
Yeah.
A beautiful, how you call it? Symbiosis, maybe? Something like that. Anyway, Svitlana, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your smart moves. I am looking forward for the Fritz trainer, hopefully coming up in one of the next weeks. And yeah, all right. I think that's it, right? Anything else or anything I cut you off maybe you wanted to still say or...
No, I'm good. I mean, I have a lot of more examples, but I think we already got.
You have thousands of smart moves, and I'm looking forward for the next episode to see that. All right, guys. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.